For those of us living in small island developing states like the Caribbean, for example, the discussion of sovereign debt and climate change is not an academic exercise. It is an existential one. It is about our right to exist and to enjoy a certain quality of life. Many people think about our region as a playground for sun-seeking tourists, but that is not what we really are. People see us this way because they look at the region through the lens of rose-colored spectacles and not through the glasses of reality. Dame Eugenia Charles, the Prime Minister of Dominica between 1980 and 1995, noted that the real Caribbean is not a fun place. It's a place that has had its hard living. The islands of the Caribbean and many other small island developing states, under very normal circumstances, have a very precarious existence. With very few natural resources, the major sources of income emanate from agriculture and or tourism, which are both very susceptible to natural disasters. A forum in September 2012 among the Caribbean Development Bank, the International Monetary Fund, and the government of Trinidad and Tobago acknowledged that Caribbean countries have in common small economies, very open to international trade, and highly exposed to natural disasters and economic shocks. Now, this forum also recognized the fragility of the tourism industry by noting that travel, which is a huge part of Caribbean economies, relies on the economic well-being of the tourists' home countries. They acknowledge that tropical cyclones and floods strike the region frequently, and even when these disasters do not cause death or injury, they can compromise travel and other industries and cost a great deal to clean up. Research from the International Disaster Database indicates that the Caribbean is one of the most disaster-prone regions in the world, and that climate-related phenomena were blamed for much of the disasters which occurred in 2017. The report stated that weather-related disasters were responsible for the majority of both human and economic losses in 2017. Almost 90% of deaths in 2017 were due to climatological, hydrological, and meteorological disasters. A major problem for Caribbean countries is high unsustainable debt. It has been recommended that there be a debt to gross domestic product ratio of no more than 60%. However, several Caribbean countries have experienced ratios over 100%, with a regional average debt to GDP ratio of 79.8%. With depressed economies achieving negligible or negative growth, many countries in the Caribbean have had to use the little revenue collected to pay off debt. For there to be any capital spending for the development of an infrastructure conducive to foreign investment, monies have to be borrowed. Now, this high unsustainable debt situation has led to several debt restructures in recent years, where countries renegotiate and reduce their debts. Within a 10-year period, 7 Caribbean countries had their debts restructured: Antigua and Barbuda in 2010, Dominica in 2004, Belize 2007 and 2013, Grenada 2006, 2010, and 2013, Jamaica in 2010 and 2013, and St. Kitts and Nevis in 2011. In the book Decolonization and Development, Robert Greenwood, Shirley Hamber, and Brian Dye referred to the symbiotic relationship between politics and economy as a country's growth cycle. So political stability gives rise to investment. Investment leads to economic growth. Economic growth produces higher living standard, and higher living standard results in political stability. However, even where this relationship works perfectly and there is a stable political environment, economic growth, and higher living standards, all of this can be reversed in less than 24 hours if we were to experience hurricanes the likes of Ivan, Irma, and Maria. Indeed, hurricanes are expected to gain in frequency and intensity as climate change continues to accelerate. Now, in the wake of a hurricane or natural disasters, our government should put the needs of their people first and should not have to worry about repayment of debts. When a crisis of the proportion that we experience in our region occurs, we should not have to put payment of dues to international organizations to a vote. It should be automatic that such a disaster would trigger a moratorium on debt repayment. Charlene Shillington Ford McKinnon, Sergeant Affairs at the Eastern Caribbean States Mission to the EU, noted that in the Caribbean, we are locked in a build and rebuild cycle due to climate change, in which we are small players, but yet the major losers. We contribute least to climate change, yet we are affected the most. The United Nations Conference on Trade and Development document highlighted the paradox of inaction on the part of the international community in doing something substantial and sustainable to help small island developing states. The paper said this, my quote, "The international community recognizes the exceptional disadvantages island societies face, but it has failed to translate this recognition into island-specific support. The vulnerability of SIDS to external factors is not disregarded, but the modest elements of special treatment that would help them become more resilient are not being made available to these countries, even though their costs to the international community would be insignificant." Could it be that the international community, those who are putting SIDS at risk, just don't care? I remember reading in the book, Whatever Became of Sin by Charles Menninger, MD, a statement he attributed to one of his professors, and this was more than 90 years ago. It said, "Man is created individually by God, the corporation is an individual created by man. Like man, the corporation has a body, it has arms, legs, it has not 4 but thousands of members. It has a mind and purpose. It has eyes and ears and a kind of brain. It thinks and plans and remembers, and it can grow to be huge and strong. But it has no conscience." Multilateral organizations and multinational creditors have demonstrated time and time again in their treatment of small island developing states on the debt repayment issue that they have no conscience. It is unconscionable to request repayment when a country has just experienced a major disaster. The government of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, Mr. Timothy Antwine, then the permanent secretary in the Ministry of Finance of Grenada, recalled how in the days right after Ivan, he received a call from an international lending entity reminding him that debt repayment, the hurricane notwithstanding, was still due. It was for reasons such as these that Grenada, in its most recent debt restructuring negotiations, insisted on and received the hurricane clause. A hurricane clause is a legal provision which provides for the deferral of principal and interest debt service payments on the possibility of fast-tracking debt restructuring operations in the event of a hurricane or other insured natural disasters. The Jubilee movement believes that the Church cannot remain silent or inactive in the face of such grave violation of the dignity and human rights of persons living in small island developing states. It has as its mandate Jesus' mission statements as is recorded by Luke. "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has chosen me to bring good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim liberty to the captives and recovery of sight to the blind, to set free the oppressed and to announce that the time has come when the Lord will save his people."